Sweet, we are live. We are live from coast to coast or from country to country, UK to Texas. Ha ha! It's Epic Loot Radio. Once again. Howdy, partners. What would be something you would say that would be very like culturally appropriate?
Why, hello. How do you do?
How do you do?
How fare you today, good sir?
I fare.
No one talks like that anymore. Actually, they probably do in some parts.
Yeah, some of them.
The really posh parts.
In the posh?
Very, very posh parts, yeah. You'll get like those that are still speaking Old English.
Mm-hmm.
Like Reckless Gambit there with his salutations.
What's gaming culture like in the UK? What's up, Reckless? What's up, Darren?
It's all right. I mean, they don't tend to go for MMO styles. Over here, it's either football games or what you call soccer. You know, they're really big here in the UK, and FPS is really stuff that I've almost got zero interest in.
Yeah, I've always kind of felt like a little like the odd man out until like Final Fantasy VII came out and was like, hey, all of a sudden everybody on the baseball team is playing Final Fantasy VII. Like, wait, what? We're all playing the same game? This is fantastic.
Nathan Walker in there with the salutations too. This is becoming something. Oh, and we have Lono.
Greetings and salutations from Nathan. Hey, what's up, Lono?
What's up? What's up?
I'm not used to the non-green screen.
I know. I've switched to the Elgato so I can I just put it down.
Nice. Nice.
We've got stuff we're gonna put on the wall soon. We're gonna go to like non-green screen.
Okay, very cool. Always changing it up.
Yeah, let me get an angle here.
Hard-hitting pre-podcast, pre-show. What's your shirt say? Is that Mario?
Mario Kart.
That's a kick-ass shirt, dude.
Yeah, they got it on I try to mix up the shirts that I wear from 80s tees. And so I try to do like Nintendo and stuff. I was like, I got an email. Oh, it was you. Okay.
Yeah, I just shot you an email just in case because I was like, sometimes people are like, hey, how do I get in? What's this about? Because they haven't used StreamYard yet. And so it's like, yeah, it's a new program. Some people, I see it taking off more and more, which is nice.
Is this the mic that's using?
Yeah, that is what the mic is currently set to. And just make sure y'all have your camera set to 1080p. I think for all y'all, it's set to 1080p. But prior to this, we had a huge sponsorship helped out the podcast. So I was able to actually upgrade so we can actually broadcast via StreamYard in 1080p because it's like their higher tier.
Okay. No. Yeah, I think it's at 1080.
Yeah, mine's at 1080.
I'm gonna try and get myself centered.
Yeah, I mean that'd be a pro. What's up, Creature? What's up, Reckless?
How's it going, chat?
Oh, and I see he's rocking the 7B as well.
Wait, are we live somewhere?
We are live right now.
Where?
On Ginger Prime and Ginger Gaming Radio on YouTube.
Oh my gosh. You said recording. I didn't think I would have directed everybody here.
Oh, it's okay. I
didn't know we were recording. I didn't know we were live.
Yeah, we typically film these live. So this is like all pre-show. So it's like, it's like we'll just talk about whatever and then we'll go with it. I've been doing a lot of experimentation when it comes to like the platforms, right? So like I know you talk a lot about the Purple platform, and I can talk about like the anxiety that I get with Purple versus like this like real relaxed nature that I get with Red, and I'll just like speak with everything in colors. And so I have a podcast channel that's Ginger Gaming Radio. Like its mindset is this podcast lives there. The highlights of the show live there, and then I got Ginger Prime. But it's hard as a content creator to get your community to go from one place to the next, even within the same ecosystem as YouTube. So
Right.
at the current time, I've been experimenting with broadcasting on gaming radio and Prime. But once this is done, Prime gets unlisted immediately. Like it happens automatically. It's just unlisted. The idea is that to draw in more conversation with the community. Sometimes we even do a call-in show because I could literally post the link and I could decide to admit people to like ask their question live or not, and then kind of dismiss. So it's kind of a little bit more conversational. And then the full thing, like all the pre-show and post-show, that lives as a part of a live stream on gaming radio. And then I take the podcast MP3 put up the video podcast on gaming radio, and then have all the highlights point to the full like video podcast, but also, I suck at reminding people to literally like go and subscribe to the MP3. It's like, cause I literally I just split it out. It was all like under one Work to Game banner, and I was able to take the Work to Game podcast, and now it's its own thing, and then Epic Blue Radio is its own thing. Cause I also even saw, just like whenever I would post two podcasts, because I'd always end up scheduling them both for Fridays, and whatever podcast got posted last was always the one that did better. Wouldn't matter the topic, because it only kind of push out the latest. Nobody would ever see like, oh, I got two podcasts to catch up on.
Right.
Well, are we ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I unfortunately sent everybody over to a premiere on my other channel. I would have sent
it doesn't matter. It does not matter, man. Well, I hope this will be one of many times we get you on the show to talk about all things that are going on with these kind of games. But yeah, maybe I didn't communicate that well. Like it's our first time actually visibly talking. So
well, and I even feel bad too, because I asked you to bump the show back, because I was like, oh, we're recording, can we bump back the recording time? Because I had just launched from Fridays last week, and I was like, it's always a bummer to stop something, as soon as you try to get it started. So I was like, I'd like to get jumped back in second week.
Do not feel bad. This is just going to be us hanging out, having fun. Hopefully no more than an hour. I've been sick all week, so I'm hoping that you guys do most of the work and I just ask questions and kind of say like I agree or disagree, just because my voice keeps like it's better, but you can just hear right there, like it just
right now I heard it.
Yeah, it's just like occasionally it's like, no, I'm not gonna speak. I'm not gonna speak. So all right, cool, guys, I'm excited. Let me hit record like a professional. Okay. That's always the first step. We are recording. Perfect. And how does everybody sound before we kind of go? So chat, can y'all weigh in? Can you hear Lono? Can you hear Chaos? Okay.
Maybe we should give us mic checks, as they're going to be asking that.
It's up to you guys.
Testing.
It's like, can you hear these guys? Okay. And then literally like nothing.
Well, I was like, I didn't know if he was going to talk. I didn't know if we were supposed to talk. Yeah.
Kind of like, a coming of minds, a melting of individuals. Give me a 1, 2, 3 check. All right. Check. Chaos, you go.
Check. 1, 2, 3. Check.
Like I hear everybody perfect.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you're using, but if we're coming through same volume to you, then it.
I also have I actually mix it all into different audio tracks too. So even after in post, I can fix any audio issues. So all right, cool. Everybody's saying we're good. So let's do this thing. We'll kick this up, and here we go. Hello and welcome to Epic Loot Radio. My name is Brian, and joining me, my co-host Chaos, returning from honestly probably like a worst couple of weeks, having your account hacked. So much chaos has been going on in Chaos's life, and joining us today for the first time, Lono from SNTR presents Say No to Rage. We're going to be talking about New World. We're going to be talking about pretty much a lot of different games. As this is a conversational podcast, who knows what direction we might go in. There's been some breaking news this week with Activision Blizzard, so that is on the table, but we'll see if we end up exploring that in this episode. We'll save that later. If we end up running long, we'll end up cutting it. Now, I do want to say shout out to Luke for his epic sponsorship of this podcast, helping us to bring it into MP3 form. You can now subscribe to Epic Loot Radio on MP3 on any podcast platform. Just search it, whether you like Google, Apple, doesn't matter, Spotify, search Epic Loot Radio, subscribe, and give us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. I've been enjoying reading the reviews so far. Now, beyond that, if you guys wanted to jump out and help support the podcast, check out Ginger Gaming Radio. we do have a membership option. Key, thank you so much for joining that. That's going to be one way to help support the show in the long run. So that way we don't have to rely on big money donations coming from the community. I do thank you guys so much for your support. But before we just go on just a kind of a thank you for the support, let's go ahead and talk to our guest, the first time on the podcast itself. Lono, why don't you introduce yourself to those who might not have heard of you, might not know your content, your platform? The floor is yours.
Well, yeah, I go by Lono, and we house a lot of content now under the SNTR network sort of banner. We have SNTR Presents, that's like the main show, and then we have SNTR Shorts and SNTR Gaming, because not everybody wants to watch a live broadcast every day. So we take little segments from the daily show on SNTR Presents, and that's what Shorts is for. Because, yeah, people come to YouTube, a lot of times they look for like short videos, not a 4-hour stream. And so that's what that is there for. And then SNTR Gaming, where I accidentally sent everybody instead of sending them here, because I thought we were recording. They're all over there watching a Pokemon Unite premiere. So I use the gaming channel for like short. We're trying something different with it. We're kind of recording short segments of newer games instead of feeling like I have to go over there and stream. Originally, SNTR Presents was mainly about Destiny, and now I no longer cover that game. And so it made sense to start to bring gameplay back to the main channel, since it's about variety gaming content now. So today we were playing Dark Souls 3 to lead up to Elden Ring. We're doing a thing called From Fridays. And all throughout this week, I was playing 2 days. I played New World. And then the one day we couldn't play a game because EA Live happened in the afternoon. So
yeah,
Monday through Friday, we're over there chopping it up, variety gaming coverage or variety gaming gameplay.
That's fantastic. So outside of that, like Elden Ring, you said you've been playing that as a variety content creator now. Obviously, like you big into the Destiny community, that is no longer a thing. If you guys are interested about that story, that's been covered like by I think 100 YouTubers by now. So we don't need to like relitigate any of that. But the idea is that how are you finding variety content from a content creator's perspective? I'm very curious.
Yeah.
This is just, your floor is yours.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's a tipping point where there's more good than bad. I think when it starts out, it's almost equally good and bad, because you're like, here's all the good things. There is no limit on what you can cover. YouTube's enormous. And when you only appeal to one, community, you're not appealing to what is essentially one of the, I think, the largest user base sites in the world. You're not appealing to the entire user base. You're appealing to like just those people. So that's good. And it's also good because you can feel yourself get into a bit of a rut. You're like, I've been covering this game for 5 years, and how often and how many times can we talk about, bounties or whatever. So the sense of freedom and liberty and sort of the sky is the limit and now I can do other things is really, really nice. But when you first start out, there's also a ton of bad, because you don't even know what people want to hear, what people want to know about. You don't have a central core to like pull people in with anymore.
Right.
So obviously everything takes a hit, all of your metrics. And no matter how often people want to talk about, don't pay attention to metrics, you kind of have to, especially if you're like me. We're, single income family. My wife is with the kids all day, just bought a house last year. It's like,
congrats.
Thank you. It's like, I've got to make money, that's an aspect of it. It's gotta generate revenue, and you have to think about those things. And that can corrupt the the process, because we started variety coverage. It was like, I think it was like late April or early May. And it was really good starting out. And that really, I think, tricked us into thinking we were all, this is going to be an easy transition. If only we knew what was waiting for us, which was lots of sub loss, lots of viewership going down. Initially, I think people were just interested in sort of the drama and what had happened. And, oh my gosh, this guy got banned. And everybody's waiting to see, like, is he going to pop? Like, is this guy going to lose it? I think a lot of people felt like they were watching a slow motion car crash, because they were just sort of waiting. Is this guy going to completely lose his grip? And when that didn't happen, and we settled into a very predictable rhythm of variety coverage, everything started to go down, because I think people just were like, well, he's not going to cover that game. And, he's not having a mental breakdown on stream. This isn't interesting anymore. And so they moved on. But now it's more good than bad. Now we kind of know what we're doing. We took some really hard lumps and some hard lessons, and now it's just exciting. It's like, what's happening, when the thing happened Monday, Sunday, they say, if you hear the lawnmower, sorry, it's Friday afternoon. They announced on Sunday that, they're going to do this Tom Clancy announcement on Monday. Well, that was like, oh yeah, something to do, something to watch, something to cover. But that also means when that's not happening, you kind of have to figure out, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to squeeze blood from a stone. There's nothing happening some days. So, and that's when you have to get creative. And that's when you have to kind of come up with like, what are we going to do when that happens? Featuring like indie titles on my smaller channel, or trying to come up with like really strong opinion pieces. So we're trying to like shelve opinion pieces and save them for rainy days, because we know that's going to happen. Like, news just dries up. You're not going to have EA Play every week. You're not going to have a trailer dropping all the time. And then there's like a deluge of games on the horizon. Like, we've waited and waited and waited for launches, and then all of a sudden they're all going to start landing in very, very close succession. So we've kind of reached that tipping point where we know kind of what to expect from the channel. And that's tough to see, like, oh man, our baseline is now here. It used to be here. But the perspective of like, okay, but the potential of growth is so much larger, and the sense of freedom and just getting into a better mental space too. Like, we changed a lot of like my daily routine about, how
Not
late I was
until like super late. Exactly. You and I have a lot of similarities, because I'm the sole provider for the family, and that's like a crazy extra level of pressure, and I don't really talk about it. I don't need to really go into it here, but like, I can completely relate to that feeling of like, if I'm not working, like, I'm behind. And it's like, and then my wife is, thankfully that bridge to say, you need to be done, because you're going to suck tomorrow if you don't. It's like, you got to get up tomorrow. Like, tomorrow's going to come. Take a break, Brian. But so go ahead. Any other thoughts on that one? Because I jumped in. No, that's perfect, because that is so true. Like, the content suffers when you're suffering. Like, the content should flourish if you're flourishing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the numbers are going to be there, but for me, it's like, I'm intelligent enough to know and experienced enough to know every day will not be a banger. Like, you're going to have weak days, especially in variety. Like, you're going to think, and this is what happened a couple of times. So like, oh, this is going to be a big one. This can be a big topic and a big day. And it wasn't, there's just sometimes it just doesn't hit right. Sometimes the YouTube algorithm just crosses his arms and says, nah, your video's going nowhere today. And then other days your video takes off like a rocket. And you don't sometimes I'm like, I don't even know why. Like, okay.
That what's that game that they went in early access on the PlayStation, Arcadegeddon? I streamed that on my gaming channel, and 3 days later it just took off and got all these views. I'm like, what? It's like, and so you can get discouraged, you can get lost in the numbers, and I think it's easier to have a sober and an honest I guess headspace about numbers and money if you're in a healthy place. Like, if you're not in a healthy place, you're going to be so unstable. Like, the slightest drop in numbers or the slightest slowdown or the downturn is going to just be gutting. And so I talked to my producer. I was like, we have to change the logistics of my day to day. If I'm working till 11 and the next day is a stinker, I get an hour into the stream and I want to shut down. I'm like, forget this. I'm tired. I worked till late last night. I don't have a life, and it's not even worth it. It's one thing when the numbers are there. Holy moly. Like, when I was really growing in 2019 and early 2020, well, it's easy to pour the coal into the fire because it's just hot. But when you're pouring the coal into the fire and nothing's happening, it's like, okay, like, this isn't working. So that we made a lot of changes that has really helped my headspace and my attitude. And I've got some other personal things that have happened with respect to my own life and mental health and my faith. And we even want to make a channel about that, just because I think it could be really good. And so right now we have made space for it, and we're not going to fill it. We're just going to say, can we maintain this for a month or so? And no, that slot of time would be perfect for this project. if we can't maintain that, we'll have to rethink. But we didn't want to dive into it and then have to stop or like rethink it. So we're like, okay, logistically, can we make space for a new project? And if yes, let's maintain that for a while and then maybe dive in.
Yeah, it's so important. Such a message, essentially what you're talking about, because a lot of like I've kind of, when I talk to people, it's like there's a lot of highs and lows in content creation, and you have to find that balance or it will destroy you. And I like the only person I would say, like when anybody's like saying, hey, should I get into content creation? I always kind of like, one thing I would say, the only person I could think right now that I would say does not need to be in it is somebody who's bipolar, because those highs and those lows will just like could throw you for a loop. And it's yeah, and it's important not to obsess about the numbers. Chaos, I'm going to bring you in because you feel like you like privately, we've been talking right before the Lono joined us. You've been going through like that downturn right now, and you've expressed to me like some stress and some frustration, along with your like Discord account being hacked. Guys, if y'all are aware and you're new to the show, Chaos is usually my my number 2 chair, but he's been out for a couple of weeks because he's just had a lot of stuff to deal with. You want to kind of touch on what Lono just said at all, or do we want to just dive into New World?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what Lono was saying there, I'm pretty much a prime target there. Recently, as some of you might be aware, my Discord was hacked, and Discord was very unfriendly with support. But the people that were there, that were in my Discord, were also the people that were following me on YouTube and Twitch. And because they got scared or freaked out by what happened, they instantly like stopped watching my content in fears that they might get hacked. They instantly unsubscribed. I think I've lost something in the region of about 250 subs in 2 weeks. And it's, from hitting numbers where you're quite happy with as a small content creator, for it crashing down to almost nothing. Like Leno was saying, it can affect, at least me, it's been quite traumatic. But you've just got to kind of ignore it, as we were discussing earlier, and just push through. It's not been easy, but a lot of the bad stuff is now behind, and I've kind of set myself on a new path, and those that still want to support what I do are still there, and I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into the fun, because this week has had its up and downs, but we've all played New World. Chaos, you were talking a little bit. I know, Lono, you covered the graphics card issue essentially that's been reported that actually impacted you, Chaos. Do you want to talk about let's start with the positive side of what we've experienced with New World. Let's then talk, and then we'll transition into the graphics card.
All right, yeah. So first start of the game, the intro was pretty awesome. Really enjoyed it. It set the scene. The actual opening area was pretty cool with the whole shipwreck, the kind of dead pirate, the kind of tempered enemies. Yeah, 14 reference, but it works. I really liked it, going into the caves and stuff, and it's the first MMO that I've actually used the keyboard and mouse with. I was watching your video guide on the controller mapping, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to give it a try. Keyboard and mouse. First time ever. Proper virgin. And it actually worked, and I was really enjoying it. My first impressions of it was actually pretty decent. Some of the stuff, like the skinning the boar and stuff, took a little long. So I think there's a little bit of pacing there. But overall, in terms of combat and menus and aesthetics, the game looked all right. It was definitely going in a direction that I was okay with. It didn't blow me away, but I was only about 2 hours into it at that time before disaster struck. So
well, before we get into the disaster, Lona, what's your first impressions with New World?
Yeah, mine were pretty positive, because I have always thought, and people were sort of asking before New World launch, what is it about MMOs that you think sort of needs to change to sort of, I guess, transcend or contextualize to where we are now with gaming? And the two things I highlighted was, I said, the graphics and the combat, I think, are the biggest turnoff to people that didn't get hooked by early era EverQuest or World of Warcraft or some of the others. It just, if those games hooked you, you don't really care about any of those things. You're just sort of in, and it's in your blood now. And so for the average person, or even the person that's become more of a hobbyist gamer, I felt like the graphics and the combat were huge barriers, because back when EverQuest and World of Warcraft started, I felt that the average person had no interest in them. It was kind of anomalous, because I remember playing Quake and Unreal Tournament, and my friends got hooked on those games. I'm like, what are you doing with your life? This is insane, the time you're putting in. And I missed my Quake and Unreal Tournament buddies. And now I think the time that you need to put into an MMO is more palatable and more common. Like, I think more gamers put in that amount of time throughout a week into mobile games, or games like Destiny, games like Elder Scrolls. Elder Scrolls is a bit of an MMO too, but it doesn't quite have that World of Warcraft feel or the EverQuest feel. And so I thought, man, if New World is going to nail it, they're going to need to nail the graphics and the combat. And those are kind of the two things I'm hearing the most positive feedback from folks who typically sit out from an MMO. They typically are like, nah, no, thank you. And so I felt the same way. I felt like, yeah, the graphics are right where you want them. They're not blowing my mind, but they're good. Like the lighting effects, the fog, the water, the trees. It feels good to be in the world. It doesn't sort of feel like I'm playing a dated, or sometimes I always felt like when I would try to play an MMO, I felt like everything's muted. Mm-hmm. Colors, texture, vibrancy, everything's turned down and bland or real wooden. And so that stood out immediately. And I think their middle ground approach on combat between sort of being action oriented and MMO oriented is good. But I like it, but I'm concerned the clunkiness and some of the lack of fluidity is going to end up being a turnoff to the people it's meant to pull in. Like, it's meant to kind of pull in the more non-traditional MMO fan that just likes an action adventure game, but it kind of has that clunky rigidity of an MMO. It's sort of an in-between. And so I know they don't want to do animation cancel. I guess they've answered questions about that. And that I don't necessarily think is the only thing they could do to increase fluidity. So for me, the two things I kind of highlighted as positives were graphics and combat. But then the concern on the back end I had was, man, I don't know, combat might end up becoming a bit of a sore spot for people after a long play session.
It's going to be interesting to see in the long run how that ultimately plays out. I'd add music to the list of really high notes that the game delivers on. For me, like I said the story a couple times, but it's like I grew up in East Texas. I was born in East Texas. Lots of trees, tall trees. And so stepping into the game, like, it was kind of stepping into what I remember about childhood, like this big world that's just like, like massive, running from place to place, and being a avid Final Fantasy 14 player, no walls or barriers or loading screens, all that being kind of handled by the game itself. Just truly lets me get lost in these adventures that I'm on. I also I've seen a lot of people debate, is New World a sandbox game? Is it a theme park game? And I've long stated that it's a sand park. It's a hybrid model where, yeah, maybe the theme park isn't going to be as strong as somebody coming from World of Warcraft might be used to, or Final Fantasy 14 might be used to, or somebody coming from like EVE Online or Elite Dangerous for sandbox coming in, it might not, but I think it does a decent enough job. And I think that's all it really needs to do, because one of the things that I've seen over, like, when you compare about future MMOs that are on the horizon, I see a lot of hope put into Ashes of Creation as a game where people say it's going to save the MMORPG genre. And all I've heard about New World, even though after I played it, I go, I don't know why people think this game's going to suck. Like, I think it was really good. Like, I came away from this week, but even the preview a year ago, going like, yeah, like this is something special. If nothing else, like a potential, like Amazon has something here. If they want to keep working to refine that into something like magical, that's going to be up to them. But all New World has to be is better than suck, and it delivers on the expectation a lot of people have for it. And all Ashes of Creation has to do is save an entire genre of a game. And I'm like, that's a lot of pressure for a $40 million budget versus like Amazon saying, yeah, we can run this at a loss for a decade. We don't care. We're going to send somebody to the moon in a penis shaped like rocket. I don't know. It's like, what's going on? It's a whole new world, guys. And that's like, I think that's something that's going to be ultimately fascinating. Now, Chaos, you said you ran into some issues. Let's talk about the graphics cards problems that are plaguing the game.
Well, yeah, like I got to the first town, and my PC was breathing like a dragon onto my legs.
What graphics
If
card
it,
do you have? And that way you can
I
kind of
have
set
a
specs.
EVGA 2080 Super, and it was breathing like a fire-breathing dragon. And then my chat just started going crazy, telling me, "Hey, have you heard about this?" And I said, "It's fine, don't worry. I'm running at 70 frames per second, everything set to ultra. It's going great." And then I thought, you know what, let me just check the temperatures. And my graphics card was a little high. So not too bad. But then I checked my CPU, which is supposed to be around what, 80, 75, 80? And it was like 105 degrees. I'm surprised my machine didn't blue screen. Then I kind of went to a quiet area and it spiked to 110, and yeah, that was it. It wasn't worth risking it at that point.
No, definitely
110
not.
degrees on the CPU, even in like quiet areas where there's no anyone around, there was something clearly wrong there. So I just said, you know what, that's it, I'm done. Until this is optimized or fixed, I can't justify burning through a £900 graphics card. or a £700 processor for that matter.
In a world where silicon is like the bottleneck to the like entire, like shipping and receiving world, it's like, oh, you want new servers? Well, we're behind the car guys because we can't even make new cars right now. Like that's how it is.
And it's a shame because up until that point, I was enjoying what I was doing. I wasn't blown away, but there was enough there to keep me wanting playing. Something that Lono touched on with the animation canceling, I noticed that straight away, and I thought that was a little annoying. I kind of expected there to be animation canceling in something that was designed in the way it is. There's no active cooldown or anything, global cooldowns or anything that I saw outside of your skills. Just freestyle combat should at least have some form of animation canceling. Because I died at least once because I assumed, hey, I can roll back as soon as I hit. No, you can't. I can tell you from experience, you cannot roll after you've decided to hit something. You will die if you've got no health.
So, Lona, what's your take on the whole graphics card situation? Like I know the New World devs said that they're just using the standard API calls, and then it seems like this might be related to a specific manufacturer of the card. What's your take on it?
From what I've gathered, there's a couple of videos and posts that have done extensive research on this prior to New World's closed beta even launching. And the conclusion that these guys came to was that there is an inherent flaw in these cards, that especially the 3090s, apparently there is VRAM or something on the backside of the card that is not heat sinked, and it gets exceptionally hot. And typically, I'm a bit of a layman here, but when equipment gets too hot in a computer, people that are familiar with overclocking know what this is. You push it too far, gets unstable or shuts down, and it shuts down to protect itself. Well, what was happening was people were getting that shutdown and then booting the game back up, and apparently the cards were already so hot that they burned themselves out, which again seems strange. Why there wouldn't be a fail-safe to even prevent anything from happening. Like, hey, your card's already too hot, blink, and it would just shut down. That's what you would expect to happen. So there seems to be some sort of an inherent design flaw in these cards that's causing it, but it's also pointing out there's something inside of New World that's pushing systems a little too hard. It seems to be the uncapped frames. Like, if you have uncapped frames, it's pushing the system too far and it's getting really, really hot. And it's not. Go ahead.
And that is actually something you can change. So anybody's listening to this from a news perspective, go into your settings, scroll down to the graphics, and set it from uncapped, which is the default, to a capped 60 frames. And honestly, I can't tell the difference. And I haven't had any problems though with my PC. Thank goodness. Go ahead.
Yeah, mine was uncapped as well, by the way. Just adding to it.
Yes. And I cap mine typically capped at 60 with VSync on. I feel I get cleaner capture. I do pass through with an AverMedia external card, and I always feel like I get a cleaner capture when I do that, just because OBS and the broadcast is only at 60 anyway. And so when you're sending it inconsistent frame rates, it always can look a little choppy. And so I'm like, if I send it a clean 60, it usually looks really good on stream. And I know I'm not getting my I usually go 120 cap because that divides down to 60 very cleanly. But in this case, I just did the 60. I wasn't expecting to get more than 60 anyway. The areas are incredibly dense and there's people everywhere. Right?
What kind of hardware do you run? Do you mind sharing? Like, just so for knowledge for chat?
Yeah, it's a 2080 Ti. I don't know the rest. It was a pre-built system. We got my wife to run like Borderlands 3 at like really good settings back when it came out. And so it's a good system. Like it's not like I'm not running a 3090, you know, it's not crazy, but this would be I would consider it to be an upper level performance machine.
Yeah.
But I just know in games like MMOs and stuff, you're going to have awful frames in town. You're going to have awful frames in some of the areas. If you're going for high frames, you're going to notice those dips. So I'm like, 60, solid 60. I'm happy. We had similar things with Horizon Zero Dawn's PC port. It just seems to run way better when I capped it at 60. Beyond that, we just had a lot of weird behavior in the game. That's related to the port and that game never really originally being built for 60, but I've had this experience before. So the research that I did on it seemed to indicate that the cards themselves have an inherent flaw that needs to be addressed, and capping and even rolling back drivers can help. But also, it's not just New World, it's games. Any game that can like go nuts on frames all of a sudden can really overheat these cards, and since they're not properly, and this is opinion obviously, but people are like, they're not properly heat synced. Because ordinarily your computer gets too hot, reboots, it comes back on. By the time it's back on, everything's kind of cooled down. And it sounds like these cards are not doing that, which is why they fried themselves.
Yeah, and that's a real big troubling concern. Now, Blue Net Gaming says, like, I've got the game ready to run, but I'm scared to run it. I end up destroying my equipment. What do you guys think? And for me, I run a 3080. I got an AMD like Video 950X like processor. I'm able to crush this game. But seeing the news, I have not had a problem. I like this. My system is also set up to alert with all kinds of things if I go into it. Like even if the CPU gets into the 80s, centigrade or whatever, Celsius, centigrade. And so it's like honestly, like I'm not worried about overheating for me personally because I just already have the defaultos. But I went ahead and just because of it set it to 60. Now they've already also released a patch that basically caps the frame rate on menus. Essentially, I think the kind of the pairing was like it was uncapped and then the menus just went bonzo nuts. And so honestly, I would say just go in, set your frame rate to cap. And honestly, if you're really worried, it's a beta. Your character's getting wiped anyway. Like just wait till the release where they'll be able to compile the data and find the issue. And most likely, I do agree with what a lot of people are saying, that it is most likely due to an issue with the manufacturing of these cards and an issue that is unfortunately taking where it's, like you find this bug from a game. And I remember there was a time where Excel like had this massive recall in processors. Like Excel discovered a bug, like where literally a calculation always proved false. Like it was just wrong. And then they found a problem with Intel. And that was a big drama back in the 90s because it was like they had issued all these processors and then there was this massive bug and recall. So it's things like this happen from time to time. But I wouldn't ultimately be too concerned. Not enough to, like just set it to cap frame rate and you should be fine for now. Excuse me. All right. So any other thoughts regarding kind of the cap frame, the frame rate or New World? I think I've touched on what I want to say. Lona?
I think that's it. I mean, I did the only thought I had this morning was I don't doubt a game like this. I've said similar things about Battlefield 2042. I don't doubt their ability to be a commercial success initially. The big question mark for me is, can it endure? 1 or 2 months in, are people going to be continuing to play? Or what I said, are you going to lose the traditional MMO fans because the depth is a little thin comparatively? And are you going to lose the more non-traditional MMO fans because of the combat things that I talked about, or maybe they just feel like there's too much depth? The question is, can you have people in the middle, right? Is there enough middle in the Venn diagram to really sustain this game long term? Enough people that like the MMO elements or the action elements? That's the question mark for me. I think this game is primed to be a commercial success. They peaked at 190,000 concurrent on the Steam charts. So that's pretty good for a beta. So That's not in question at this point. I think it'll be a commercial success. Is how will it do, a month or two in?
What do you think,
When you
Cass?
say it's not for the game doesn't go in depth, what do you mean by that?
The more traditional MMO fans that have hung out in my community, so I'm attempting to be a mouthpiece for them.
I'm an MMO fan. I hang out in your community.
We're all
MMO fans. Yeah. The guys that are fans of more traditional MMOs, Warcraft, World of Warcraft and stuff, have said they felt like there's a lack of depth because of the class. There's no classes. There's so much freedom, and it seems very easy and straightforward to do certain things. So I'm attempting to kind of represent that shade of like people like, yeah, there's just not enough depth here for what I was looking for. Now I've had fans of MMOs say, oh, I love this. I think this is great. This is all the things I got annoyed by in the other MMOs. I don't have to worry about that in this game. So I don't want to make it sound like if they're coming from EverQuest or World of Warcraft, they won't like it. But I do think there are subsets of that like traditional MMO fan base that will get into this in about 2 weeks in, be like, yeah, the depth isn't there. Just because I don't necessarily think New World is building it to feel like a traditional MMO. I do think they're trying to ride that middle of be more approachable, be more accessible, but also at its heart, they still want to be an MMO. And I that's the concern is, in an effort to be more approachable and accessible, are you going to lose the traditional fans faster? And then if you do, are you going to capture enough non-traditional MMO fans to sort of balance it out?
See, for me, I see exactly what you're saying. If we go back to like traditional MMOs, I spent about 7-8 years playing Final Fantasy XI. Doing like one quest chain could take well over 15 hours. You'd start from the beginning. By the time you've gathered everyone, get from point A to point B, fight your first boss and whatnot, that level of commitment isn't available to a lot of people these days. We look at gamers as ourselves, as like we spend all our free time playing video games, and then we look at other people and we're like, how can you not have 10 minutes per day or an hour per day just for you to play games? And they're like, I don't have that time. And it boggles my mind. So, I mean, I understand how you guys must feel the same. But I think what Amazon is going for here is exactly what you're saying. They're going for that streamlined approach where you can play the game for a couple of hours with your friends and get a metric ton done in that time, where you feel like your time is being rewarded. After all, it is a buy-to-play game. It's not a subscription-based. And as long as the players are being rewarded, the experience is good. Sure, they may lose the people at the top elite level, but as we know, there's a lot more middle ground for a window of players than there is for the top 10%. You've got the 90% at the bottom as a much bigger market. And even if they spend 2-3 hours a day or 2 hours a day inside your world, that'll be more than the 10% or the 5% of the elite of the hardcore gamers that are there. So going for that market, I think, is a hell of a lot more advisable for Amazon, because you've got WoW, you've got 14 who are right now just, well, I wouldn't say WoW's killing it, but 14 is killing it right now. Couldn't even get into the game for a while. But you've got like the end game hardcore raids, and there's a lot of depth to 14. There's a lot of rotations to learn and patterns to learn and things like this. And a lot of people that I talk to get put off by this. They don't want that. They just want a really, streamlined game where they can just go in with a bunch of friends and just have some fun, go kill some bad guys, defeat a boss, pick up some loot, get some upgrades, and move on to the next quest. And I think if New World can land that right, they're not going to be there for like World Fests or stuff like that, but they will definitely be riding the Kool-Aid for a while.
I think the fact that they don't have a subscription is going to be a key advantage for them, because Amazon can afford to run this game for a long period of time and have committed to doing so. They say they have a 10-year plan. I think for them, it's all going to be about action rather than words, because at the end of the day, they pulled their one game out of release and back into beta and then just canceled it all right. They're publishing Lost Ark later this fall. So gamers don't know Amazon like game studios. Like we just don't. And trust is a huge aspect, especially when it comes to anything financially viable. But do think they have a unique advantage. And so just like Lona was talking about in terms of like, yeah, it's probably going to be a financial success. And I'm going to get to Paul's gaming comment here in a second. But yeah, you'll get the hype and then it's going to fall right off. And people are going to go back to where they're comfortable, right? Like most likely people are going to probably return to Final Fantasy 14. That's right now the new hotness. I probably see that continuing on all the way, at least through Endwalker up to some point. And then things will probably kind of, simmer down or settle down. It'll be interesting to see if people are truly done with WoW. MMOs aren't just a game; they are a community. And so, like, if your community, your friends are the people you've gamed with for 15 years that you've been to their weddings with, or like, I'm gonna go do this. Like, there's that natural like magnetism where people like to play games together. Like, we all play these multiplayer online games because it gives us a sense, especially this last year, that we're connected to somebody. Even if we can't physically be there. And so I think that we'll naturally see that. What Amazon, I don't really think it's about the release, because I think it's about year one. Do they come out with an expansion 1 year later? And if so, what does that look like? Because essentially that starts to communicate to gamers that we're in it for the long haul. Your time is respected. Your investment in your character is respected. There is a community here so you can have people to play with. You're not going to just be in this solo simulator. That was my problem with World of Warcraft. I've covered it before, but it's like I was playing the game and I was like, I didn't see another living soul. And I was like, I thought this was an MMO. Like, it's like literally I could have been playing a single player game. And I was like, what am I doing here? And yes, I could have taken steps to make that alleviate, but the way that it's structured is like one of the things I really find attractive about this game is that I'm constantly running around and I constantly see things that I might want to go look at, engage with. I see other players waving. Conversations have been just happening because everybody isn't off in their own little instance. There's safe little space that they are going to have their loot protected and things like that. And so coming from an 11 background, Final Fantasy 11, I do tend to appreciate that. But I think there are some legitimate concerns I have with World of Warcraft and how it's trained players to think of what an MMO is. I see like Paul saying, I can't judge the game till endgame. Like Final Fantasy 11 for me, the endgame started at level 1. WoW and even 14 has its endgame like after you do this set number thing. You traverse through X and then eventually you get to the real game, the end game. And I think essentially like that's not necessarily something healthy for long-term mental health, long-term gaming culture, is that you have to get through this to enjoy that. And it's like, yep. I really like, I view these games, RPGs in total, as it's about also the journey as opposed just as much as the destination. And I've been just, that's one of the things I find ultimately attractive about the game, is because it does speak to what I kind of my litmus test for what MMOs are, that the current model, like I love Final Fantasy 14, but I play that as a Final Fantasy game first and then as an MMO. And I love that it gives me that flexibility. And I love that I can kind of hop into New World and I can just kind of craft and gather if I only have a little bit of time. They will need to figure out the login queue situation, because it's not fun to sit down and say, all right, I got 40 minutes. Like as a dad, like I sat down and Lono, actually we're all dads here. I literally was like, you know what? I feel like playing some Horizon. Yeah, Horizon. That's like not the Zero Dawn, but Horizon, the race car. Forza Horizon. I was like, that's gonna be fun. I'll just pop in. I sit down. It's 40-minute update. I go, F it. I'm not gonna. In 40 minutes, I'm changing 3 diapers, and I got to do the dishes, and I got to somehow feed these kids. I'm not playing Forza Horizon today. Like it's like that's the reality of it. So it's like whatever I can kind of get in, do a little bit of whatever I feel like, and then I can just bounce out. That's the kind of gaming experience that I ultimately am looking to find. Anybody have any thoughts on what I just shared?
Much, but there was one thing I noticed in New World, which I think is going to be really cool, and it's going to be something that helps it take off. I'm not sure if you went into the settings and saw the Twitch integration.
Yeah, that's a really interesting aspect. Lona, do you have any thoughts on that? I know it's the purple platform, but I'm just like that's a unique hook.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an Amazon game, so I mean it kind of makes sense to do that. Although I've continued to wonder if Amazon and Purple are gonna continue to stay connected, because they took the thing, the Prime or whatever it was called. They turned it into Prime Gaming. Like they removed all the branding, and I thought, well, maybe they're getting ready to get rid of this platform because it's got its own problems. It's not all that profitable, but at the same time, maybe Amazon will keep it around for this angle. Like the idea of like having that integration is a bit of a hook. They like to do the drops. It's so funny to me that drops still drive people to like watch a streamer and get the drop. It's like everybody's going to have that stupid trinket and then nobody uses it because then everybody has it. but people are always, they don't care. They're like, I need to get the little
loot is loot. It's free.
Loot is loot. That's right.
Dude, swag, man. Like it's not a new concept. Like I went to this thing and I got swag and it's like, I'm going to put that on my wall.
Yeah. Anytime a game does that, though, they give away the trinket to everybody. Everyone's dying to get it, and then no one uses it because then everyone has it. Like it's just so funny that the novelty wears off. And I do think companies could learn from that, though. Like instead of giving away a specific trinket, like maybe give away a currency or something that they could use in game. So then it's a little bit more exciting because I mean we all know that drives viewership. Everyone's going in and trying to get the drop, trying to get the thing. At the end game discussion's interesting because it's such a catch-22 because no matter what you do, your core audience is going to live in the end game. But if you focus too much on the end game, you shortchange the romance and sort of the runway to the end game. I always talked about games needing a well behind the wall. Like once you get over the wall of the initial game, there's this well of depth and things to do and just a deep dive for your core audience. And it's so important to focus on that. But I think lately some companies focus so much on the well that the lead up to it is just not enjoyable or bad. Or I referenced Borderlands 3. The first playthrough is so mismanaged with scaling and leveling that people are like, well, it doesn't matter. Just rush through it and roll your play session over to the next one. I'm like, how dumb is that? Why would I want to do that? Like there's a story, there's side quests, there's dialogue, and I'm not supposed to care about any of this. I'm supposed to rush through it. So with a game like New World, that is, I think, an important question. Like, when does it tip over into end game? What does the end game look like? What am I actually doing? There's a huge focus on PvP. Is that going to drive people away? Can I completely ignore PvP and still feel like I'm enjoying my presence and time in New World? And it seems like that might honestly be the rarity. It does seem like more of the time investment and care and passion will be the people that flag for PvP and try and take over map areas and stuff and have the big battles. That seems to be a pretty hot focus, which I think has potential to make it stand out. I think that's why to loop back to animation cancel. I do think that's why they're not allowing animation cancel. They're concerned about abuse of that in both endgame and PvP, because if you can animation cancel, you can really manipulate like macros and different things to just do silly things and kind of break the game. So that's more than likely why it's action, but it's still kind of trading and buffing and having to get out of the way. Like there's a syncopation to the combat so that you can't abuse that kind of stuff.
Cass, you're gonna say something?
I was gonna say, like in 14, they have a specific tool set, like a specific menu bar for different skills that you could use, and I'm not sure how New World's PvP is it instance based?
No, actually. So to educate everybody who doesn't know, because it's a really good question, because it actually does apply, right? Because you do not need a PvP in New World. You can literally play the whole game and the quest and craft and never engage in a single fight whatsoever. When you're in a city or a sanctuary, is what they called, you can then flag for PvP. So then you run out of the sanctuary. You can't there's no fighting in towns. You run out and you have like 30 seconds or something before it actually flags you. So even if you run out of town, no one knows you're flagged for PvP. It's not like, oh, we got 30 seconds and we got a runner. Let's track him down, right? So you run out and you just run out of town and then boom, it says then you're now flagged for PvP. It's faction based, and there's 3 factions currently in the game. And so you can then engage and attack anybody who's read nameplate of another faction. So there's no friendly fire. You can't hurt another person in your faction unless you both agree to do a duel, and dueling lasts up to 5 players. I think what's unique about this, about PvP, right? And this is where I really got frustrated with Destiny in the long run, because like I never PvE'd in Destiny. I was just a PvPer, and Final Fantasy 14 was my PvE game. I kind of always bounced between the two, and then they decided they're going to delete like half the game. So I was like, all right, I'll go experience some of this PvE stuff, and I was like, oh, that was really fun. And then the Frozen expansion came out, and I'm like, great, there's Elsa, let's go do this stuff. And then I was like, I'm just back in PvP, and I'm like, I felt like Destiny hasn't done anything with that, anything. And I'm like, all right, well, let me know when we do whatever. Halo Infinite, maybe you'll be my new thing. But I'm really excited for that because I actually enjoy PvP. I think PvP is a sandbox mindset, but as a content mindset, it helps bridge gaps in PvE content and curated design content. Gamers will consume. There's like, you'd have to be like 100 million Amazons to be able to produce enough content that a gamer, especially a streamer, somebody who's a full timer, that could do in a week, right? Like, it's like, I always kind of say as a content creator that's part-time and a dad here, it's like, I won't be first. I'll get there. I'll see you guys in 6 months. I'll grind out. I'll do the work, but you guys get there in a week. I'll see you guys at the end of the thing. I'm the tortoise, y'all the hare. It is what it is. But I like that the how they have it. And then they have the forts. So they have forts that are part of zones. Those are open PvP. You wander into that, you're going to try to take over that zone. If you capture it, you get buffs for your entire faction. So there's a real incentive if you're interested in PvP. If you're not, you can completely ignore it. And then they have the invasions. So they have a PvE style endgame content that attacks the cities, and you defend it against non-players, against the waves of monsters. So I think at its start, no matter what, 4 months in, people are gonna be like, man, I wish there was more content. If Amazon can come out and say, and here's the new content, I think gamers will be like, oh, okay, let's keep going. Versus if it's like, hey, it's been a year, like, what's going on? Like, okay, then I think that's where the it's all going to be about content. Content is king, and if you deliver content, you win. One of the things that's, I think, also uniquely that I don't see a lot of people talk about, but I see like Game Pass being a direct competitor against things like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14 and anything that requires a subscription, because people get subscription fatigue. At some point, see my voice, at some point in your life, you have to look at the budget and say, all right, do I pay for Disney Plus or do I pay for Netflix? Like, we're not watching 2 shows at once. What am I going to choose? What do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense when, I don't know when it was, Phil Spencer said they viewed their competition as being Amazon and Google, because that's really where the money is. The money is in subscriptions, offering a service as opposed to selling hardware or trying to sell games. And you can really see Microsoft's long vision for this. Yeah. And I've continued to say, I think they're an absolute sleeping giant. Everyone looks at PlayStation saturation numbers of hardware, but when you think about what's going to start happening with the PC gaming explosion that's happening all over the world, and that Microsoft's unifying the platform, that subscription is just that's it. That's all you need.
Well, and as cloud comes online over the next 5 to 10 years, and all of a sudden, like, one of the things that I've talked to a bunch of hardcore gamers who are doctors and lawyers and the such now, and they were like, hey, Brian, what you playing? They know I have a YouTube channel, so they always are curious, like, what's the hot game? Do they own a console or a PC? No. I told them about Stadia, Luma, and xCloud, and they're like, I'm in. Like, are you kidding me? I don't have to like pay $400 or $1,000. I can just buy the game, or if you're subscribed to whatever, you just get the game. Like, the gamers that have aged out, but in busyness and where it doesn't financially make sense to try to keep up with the Joneses in terms of like gaming culture, like they're prime for cloud gaming, especially as internet in architecture improves across like all the various countries. But I think you're 1,000% right. Go ahead, Cass.
Just gonna say, can you imagine once they get the Xbox app on TVs? I know the Samsung TVs have it now, but it's not widespread anywhere else. But can you imagine once the xCloud app is just on your TV, you can hook your controller up, and then when you're just coming back from work, sat down, had your shower, had your meal, sit in your living room, Oh, just press the button, TV comes on, and you've got your whole Game Pass catalog just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's for what, $10.99? Who in their right mind will say no to that?
Well, I'm a lifer on that stuff because I love my Game Pass and the fact that I can now do xCloud and stuff like that. Just like I was talking about Horizon, like if sitting down and waiting for an update is a deal breaker for a busy man. And just literally I just want to boot up something. I got 15 minutes. That's where I think we've seen the explosion of mobile, is because mobile is catering to people, and people are like, oh, mobile's gamers aren't gamers. I was like, I guarantee you'll find yourself on the opposite side of this at some point if you keep thinking that way, and then you're gonna be like, oh, and I've seen people go, I guess I'm not a real gamer anymore because I play mobile games. I don't like mobile games, but they're convenient, they're accessible, and I think I think Microsoft is focusing on accessibility. And one of the things that's always irritated me, I know I piss PlayStation fans off, and I'm console agnostic. Like, I honestly just don't care. Like, play wherever you want, however you want. It does not bother me. I think Halo should be on PlayStation. I think for the Halo's sake, it just makes sense. But everybody's got the brand loyalty. That being said, I don't think PlayStation's selling better. Like, PlayStation 4 sold what? Like 105, 110 million units. It still has not outsold a PlayStation 2. Oh, PlayStation 2 had a DVD player. Big freaking whoop. Like, it's years later. How many more gamers have been created? And yet you have not sold. Like, if you were looking at a growth pattern, console sales aren't in a growth pattern. They're in a like race to this thing that we've already done over and over again. And that's where I see Microsoft going and saying, we're going to try to reach beyond 100 million. We're going to try to reach 1 billion. You know, we're going to try to reach beyond that. And we're going to do that because there's nations that are coming online for the first time that have no loyalty to a brand. And it's just to say, hey, your phone is now this. You can play all these incredible games. Just, like, here's your little fee. And that's essentially already training the next generation of gamers. So everybody who's like same thing with the free to play games. The fact that this is New World still buy to play, it boggles my mind, because the next generation gamers have already been trained that you don't buy your games. You get nickeled and dimed. And it's like, as much as people say, like, we need to make a stand, I go, like, you need to sit here and educate parents and children if you want to have any impact on the gaming industry, because that's literally what is replacing you, unless you for some reason find the fountain of youth. And then if you do, share that.
People that get weird about mobile gaming kind of crack me up. It's like, mobile gaming is the largest gaming sector in the world. And this is why the Switch is so popular, because it is obviously it's Nintendo and it sells better in the Asian market. And the Asian market is where the mobile gaming sort of just suddenly skyrockets up.
Oh, yeah.
Look globally. And the Steam Deck, my producer and I were just talking about this. The Steam Deck, Steam wants other companies to make the device as well. So if you imagine like gaming laptops, you've got Alienware and you've got all these other companies that make them. Steam is totally okay with other companies making Steam Decks, because, increase the power, all that, figure out how to make it faster, better, more powerful, because it's not that strong. Like, it's good for what it's going to offer. So that being able to do a whole market shift of like, well, now you got Steam, and then they're going to have a mobile gaming device. And if you combine that with the fact that they're like totally okay with you installing Microsoft on it, and then xCloud, yeah, the subscription-based model will have a massive market that it doesn't matter where you play or what device you have.
Exactly.
Your games are with you. And then that's going to be a huge selling point, to where I love my PlayStation 5 and I can't wait for some of the games that are going to hit it. But in 10 years, we'll probably think very differently about buying a super expensive box to hook up to our TV. Like,
right.
Sony will probably be fine for at least one more console generation, but eventually you got to think, man, that generational shift's going to happen. Like, people aren't going to think this way. I mean, what do you mean I need a console? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's like when my nephews were playing Fortnite, one's on a phone, one's on a Switch, one's on a console, and one's on a PC. And that expectation and almost like gamer schema is going to spread, and they're not going to understand, like, why do I need all that? I should just be able to play on this device, or I should be able to play wherever I am. And that'll change expectations. And the free to play, that's why I question longevity of player base for both New World and Battlefield, because they're attempting to do something that's very strange right now. Like, there's a price hurdle at the front door, and that's so different for people right now, and the Battlefield Portal announcement, I think, really tipped people to say, Well, it's worth it now. It's got almost like a second game built into it. And New World, without doing subscription, I think that'll be their justification to be like, well, you don't pay a subscription, you buy to get in. And that's why the beta was probably a good choice, to let people pre-order, try it. And if you don't like it, you can always cancel your pre-order. I thought that was probably one of the better decisions they make. And with hitting a 190,000 concurrent peak, a lot of people tried it out.
Yeah. And I think that's, go ahead, Cass.
To me, it's always been a weird thing why they didn't just leave it open to everyone to try, considering as an IP, it's new. You want as many people trying it as possible. If you think like maybe a 20% attach rate from that 190,000, or probably less, that are going to stick around,
I don't know.
You want
man.
as many people trying it as possible and making it as accessible as possible, because there is no subscription. That game is going to live and die by its microtransactions. So the more people it can have coming in, trying the game and enjoying it, the better, in my opinion.
But
I think it was a bad decision.
I think it's more about having them do a spin up. It's a slow growth mechanism. I think the worst case scenario is for New World to be the new hotness day one. We've seen the decline in WoW, and the question is what's going to happen with them, especially with the recent Blizzard, allegations that are unfolding. We're going to be talking with Hoglaw on another podcast coming up. He's did an incredible video going through the legality of essentially there's two parts to that entire story. First, there's the part of unfair wages and payment. That's mathematically provable or disprovable. And Hoag's talking about like, it's not really like present in the document. The document doesn't paint a clear sense that people are being discriminated financially against, but that doesn't mean that that's not happening. That's going to be harder to prove. But then you also have just the criminal aspect of harassment and stuff like that, plaguing these companies. And just like that aspect, which essentially evokes like, rage and like frustration and anger and pain to a wide range of people for all various different reasons. And so the question is that like, are we seeing the decline of Blizzard? Are we seeing the decline of World of Warcraft, especially in this era? And is that something going to work out in the benefit of other games? And I think WoW is like, just to be honest, I'm not a fan of the game. Like I've never connected with it. I could never seem to connect with it. So I don't have a nostalgic for it. So me playing Shadowlands by myself was just like, all right, this is silly. Like, what am I doing here? All right, I'm just going to go play what I want to play and have fun. And that's just like my personal bias. Tipping that over into it is saying that like it could easily be a phenomenon. Like people look at it as this pinnacle, and it was the right game at the right time for a lot of people. And it lit the world on fire, and then it held on to that. And then over time, it's just become what it is. So I don't think MMOs really have reached that like popular success. That I think WoW was just this random like thing that just kind of happened, because MMOs were growing, but they were never like this big thing. And we've seen even still like Fortnite.
He's coughing, folks. We're going to narrate the cough. It's a bad one. He's got a couple more left in the chamber. He mentioned Fortnite. I've actually said that I feel that Fortnite is potentially using the Battle Royale as a testing ground for like a really, really big MMO, because they have so much research that they could pour into the mechs, the planes, the building, the housing, the weapons, the world. Like I've always thought that there is some sort of a background research project. They're big live events, the big monsters. It's like if somebody wanted to build an incredibly just nuts, awesome, accessible MMO, it would be epic. Like they could apply everything they've learned from Fortnite into that. And the graphical style would probably be the only hang up for a lot of people. But other than that, I think that they have more information about player behavior and in-game mechanics and balance than almost any game in existence right now, just from how popular their game has been. And it feels like every other week they were doing something crazy with the game.
No, I agree. Epic have a trove of information that they can pull upon and branch that out to any way they want. They're sitting on a gold mine, and one day when they do finally decide to branch out into something else that's not Fortnite, I think the world is going to be very surprised with what they actually come out with, including me.
Yeah, my voice is like going away.
That's the worst when that happens. Like I've had that happen before in a broadcast. Like you get a tickle and there's no rest from it. Like you just can't get it to go away.
Yeah, it just hurts. I think that's a good enough time to end the show.
Yeah.
We're pretty much at our hour now that my voice is failing. And so colds suck, man.
They
Colds
do.
suck. Chaos, will you take us out? Because my voice is just not going to do it today.
That's cool. I don't know, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, best way to find me is you can look up SNTR Presents on YouTube or sntrpresents.com. That'll take you to the YouTube channel. That's the central hub. That's where everything kind of spawns out of. We start there every day, Monday through Friday. Talk show in the morning, gameplay in the afternoons. And then if you prefer the shorter content, shorter uploads, there's the SNTR Shorts channel. That's essentially just segments from the live show. If a live broadcast isn't a good fit for you, there's that channel as well.
Cool. You can find me over at YouTube at Chaos Prime ZYT, where my younger son has started doing streams. Good on him. You can also find me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/Chaos Prime ZYT, where I'm streaming Final Fantasy XIV content and some Genshin Impact. Now, if Brian isn't dying over there,
I'm not dying. It's just it's right. Like Lono says it right. Like it's
that will be
literally
this.
It's literally like this tickle, and it's like go away, and then it's like all right, my body wants to cough, and it's like all right, at least I have the mute button.
The only thing that ever helps me with that is to not cough. Is to do really hard throat clears. That's the only thing like that like that. That's the only thing that works when I get that tickle is water and.
That does help. Oh my gosh, I was just doing that. Pro tip, guys. And I do see the tea. So I had some tea before the show. I'm gonna get some more tea after this. So well, my voice is fading. Guys, you know where I'm at. You're here. I would check out Ginger Gaming Radio if you missed the show. And also subscribe to the MP3 format for more content, guys. I appreciate y'all. Thanks so much for being here for Epic Loot Radio. My name is Brian. That's Chaos and Lono. Thank you so much for making time today to talk with us. We love you guys. I can finish this thought. You're amazing, and we'll see you next time. And take care. Oh my gosh, there we go. Bah.
That's the worst.
I think
did it.
We did it. Like I think I was like, I thought I was like, yeah, this is great, and then all of a sudden it's like, but that was perfect time to wrap up the show. So we're still live though for a little bit. Just goodness gracious.
Nice
what a nightmare. Yeah. Oh yeah. Now it's starting to feel better.
Yeah.
Like,
it was anxiety. That was
painful. Yeah. That's where it's just like, gosh, come on, Brian, keep it together. Keep it together.
That'll happen to me. I'll take like a weird, because I talk really fast, and I'll take like a weird, I'll inhale like to get my breath, and I'll do a weird one, and it'll catch in my throat, and I'll start coughing. And I'm like, oh, that's the worst, especially when I'm like ranting about something. It really takes the wind out of the sails.
Right. Like I'm passionate. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden it's like, is he dying? Like, did he get too upset? Like,
got the little white flag. I surrender.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Seven, for the $5 super chat. Really appreciate it. Not even sending a message, just literally just dropping $5. But guys, we love you. I'm gonna wrap up, and Lono, thanks so much for being here. All the links to these gentlemen will be in the videos as they go up. Be sure to give them a follow, check out their content if you have not already, and hopefully we'll be able to do some more stuff like this. And I should be done with the cold. Like I sound 1,000 times better than I did all week, which was kind of crazy because I was like, I want to play video games, and then my body's like, nah, you're gonna sleep, son. You're gonna sleep today.
He wasn't dying earlier in the week, so get some rest, dude.
Yeah,
gargle salt water at night before bed, because that helps with like whatever the bacteria is that makes you lose your voice. Like do that. That's another. That the hot tea and honey is great, but like if you gargle salt water, I started doing that because I can tell when I get scratchy, and that has helped me not lose my voice. Because I used to have
hot lemon
all the time.
Hot water with a slice of lemon.
Now you talked about like a live redirect. Is that available? Like I haven't. How does that work? Because if you're going to do something after this, I would happily raid you in that regards.
Yeah, we would love for YouTube to allow live redirect to be something you could do to other channels, even other channels that you own. Like I own multiple channels. You can
Right,
only
same
live
here.
redirect to a scheduled premiere or another live stream on the same channel. So it's like what the what? Now that's great. Once we started doing a 4-hour talk show podcast and like 2-hour gaming, that's great because what it does is it sets up the next stream really nicely to be gameplay, and like it starts with like a good crowd. But anytime I would go over to my other channels, like, you can't live redirect. Like when we did the premiere over on gaming today, I'm just spamming the link in chat. I'm like, go over, we're going to premiere this video. So we're kind of begging them, please let us do live redirects to any video we want instead of just videos on our own stream, because on our own channel, because most of the time if you're ending, you're not doing something else.
Right. And it's interesting because you just said that, because I was like, all right, so I checked. Like tonight I'm doing a deep dungeon dive in 14. So I was like, I just set that up. If y'all are interested after this, well, see, I've never done a live direct. It's not gonna be live for hours. Y'all do you, but from that, like before we wrap, just generally curious is like, what 3 things does YouTube need to add to really like be a competitor in the space? Because we have not got an update from YouTube Gaming in well over a year.
Yeah, I saw your tweet.
And I'm just like, they said they're working on stuff, and I'm like, I'm just like Mixer, like even though they failed, like they had such interesting ideas that I was like, I would love to see YouTube just like lean over, copy the daggum homework. Like nobody cares. Like, let's just go. What 3 things do you think YouTube Gaming like absolutely needs to do before 2022?
Well, one of my mods said that. They're like, why don't they just copy what Twitch does like 6 months later? Like what? Like just the Purple platform is over monetizing to an absurd degree. Like they do it too much.
YouTube makes as much money, if not more, than Purple.
Yeah,
it's just like when they come out with these metrics, and it's like, come on, like,
and they're the most poorly monetized.
Yeah, I know, like
poorly monetized. What they need to do, and this is my hope and prayer, is that the reason nothing's happening is because there is a true and genuine live streaming overhaul coming, because chatting and moderation and monetization of the chat is horrendous. It's so bad. It's super rudimentary. It doesn't feel like you're on a YouTube or Google owned site. It's like, what is this? Is this your first website? Like, who built this? It's bad. Because people are like, give us gifted subs, give us this, give us that. I'm like, that's all window dressing, man. We need a complete overhaul so that when someone comes to a YouTube live stream, it looks good, it looks nice. They need to be able to select a username that's associated with their Google account, so they're not like suddenly
Brian, M.
Yeah,
is
Hank Johnson's talking in chat, and he's like, "What the? I don't want my full name in chat. Oh my gosh!" Like, just basic stuff like that. But that would need to be a whole overhaul. And it seems like we're getting glimpses. Like every once in a while I see something in chat and I'm like, what is that? That's new. And then it goes away.
Yeah. Well, they've added
That's one of the main reasons why a friend of mine doesn't go into YouTube streams, because his his YouTube profile, Google profile is his name, and he doesn't want his name plastered everywhere.
Yeah.
And that is the number one reason why he doesn't do YouTube gaming. Live streams.
If it just popped up and said select your username, and this username will be associated with your Google account, and you can let them change it if they want every 14 days or something. You don't want them changing it all day long. That's annoying. But that would be step one. But again, that to me is linked to a much bigger issue of like, this all needs to be completely overhauled, so that if they want to add some sort of monetization like gifted subs or bits or super chat changes, they need to build something that has elasticity so they can do that. Like Purple is really good at being like, new feature, and then just launch it. Now there's pluses and minuses to that, because like every time Purple would launch a new feature, it would the site would behave like a garbage can for like a week, and problems. And so I do applaud YouTube's slowness in rollout of polls and clips and things, because I'd rather it be slow and stable than quick and reckless. Like I hated those days on Purple. Like, hey, we're having a big day, and then all of a sudden the platform is failing and streams are crashing because they're just throwing everything at the wall over there sometimes.
The clips feature is great, except for the fact that I can't see them. I can only see the ones I make. So as a content creator, I'm like, yeah, send me your clips. Like, tweet me your clips so I can take those and turn them into shorts and highlight videos, because that's what I'm like, oh, this is great. We finally have clips. And then it's like, I see it launches. I'm like, great. And then I go into the dashboard. I'm like, well, we're still working on it, because it's like, just show me what people clip. I want to know. I want to, where are they? And it's like, if you don't tweet them at me, I'm blind to it.
Yeah.
Just completely blind to it.
Well, and the way they built clips is genius, because, and you want to encourage people to use the full minute, like do a full minute clip. But they give you like immediately like a preview of the clip, and then they roll an ad. I'm like, oh, you guys are so smart. Like, because if you do clipping well, then people are like, well, I want to see the clip. It's only a minute. Like, let me see what's going on here. And that's sort of leaning into shorts and the TikTok generation of like quick. So if they can do that, like, that'll be huge for the platform as far as just easy, not just easy monetization, but easy intrigue, like creating those short clips. So you say three things. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's just overhaul it entirely. Because to me, shutting down YouTube gaming and buying tournaments and 100 Thieves and these big streamers, that only to me makes sense. Those two things coexisting only makes sense if they've got really big plans for streaming and they just haven't rolled it out yet.
Agreed. And that's actually what we're seeing, like with Harris Heller from Alpha Gaming making the switch from Twitch to YouTube gaming. Like, at the end of the day, like, if I was going to sit down and be somebody who's going to, like, if we're taking bets, if YouTube is like ready to sit here and flip a switch and say, oh, hi, we're a giant platform and we're tired of letting other platforms monetize our creators, right? Like, what you see here is like, hey, we're on YouTube. If you're live with us, we're over here on Twitch, because the Work to Game crew, like, we're partnered on Twitch. Like, that's where Work to Game streams. And it's like, people go to that. It's like, wait a minute, like, why isn't YouTube going, like, why is all the other creators on this other platform? And it's like, I think hopefully that is exactly what's going to happen. I think if YouTube decides to get serious about it, I don't know how Twitch can compete, because YouTube has like integrated like discoverability where, like, and that's kind of a key thing. Like, you're only discoverable when you're live on Twitch, versus YouTube. Like, it's just like, that's where it's like, hey, how do I get started? Well, you better get used to editing videos, because no one will find you on Twitch. So be on both. Like, you got to do both. And that's just, it seems silly to have that kind of focus in the narrative.
Well, Purple's downfall, I've always said Purple's downfall. Even when I was over there, I said this. It drove me crazy that they wouldn't listen. And I don't know why they won't listen to this. They're so top heavy. It's a volume driven platform. The big channels get everything. So some of their longest standing and biggest streamers have the entertainment value of a fence post. Like, they just sit there and play, and they don't do anything. And they get all the views. It's a top heavy platform, and everything at the top, so much of what is at the top is just so mediocre. And that's what's so beautiful about YouTube, is that if you're making good content and you're getting people to come in and click and take a poll and chat and talk, and you're proving concept, like proof of concept interaction, it's happening, YouTube will put your content in front of people. And so I've always told people, I mean, Purple is great for making money if you're one of the big guys. And I mean, I was, and the money was insane, right? But as soon as that top tips over, or as soon as those big guys shut down, it's a super leaky platform. Like, no one stays, no one keeps watching. And when Tristan Harris sat before that congressional hearing, he said that at the time when he was at YouTube, 71% of YouTube's traffic comes from recommendations. They just get people on that hopper and they stay on. I mean, 71% is an insanely high number. Like, imagine how much viewership's happening on YouTube at a given moment in a given day. 71% of it is from recommendations. Yeah. And so if you lean into that discoverability, and you think of smart ways to angle and cover relevant topics or games or whatever, man, especially if you've got a good idea, if you're somebody like Doc and you're really a go-getter and you're creative, you could explode on YouTube. It's so hard to do that on Purple, because it's just dominated by volume, and YouTube could capitalize on that. I mean, oh my gosh, because they have such a large user base. that, and they've got the Google algorithm in the background. I mean, they could serve up the right content to the right people, and then that's honestly, that's how you make your money. Is you want good click and stick, you want good loyalty, and YouTube can cash in on that. So I hope that the reason all these big YouTubers won't talk about stuff they've heard is because I'm hoping it's massive. And I think they abandoned the YouTube gaming name because it's too narrow. I think they realize
it's restrictive.
Live streaming is so much bigger than gaming.
Yeah.
And with all the deals that they're doing with like networks and live television, I think something's coming that will be like YouTube Live, something like that.
100%.
That whole side of the channel or website will be television, sports, and what we do.
That's where it'll be interesting, because like you really hit the nail on the head, YouTube Live as that core concept, because it isn't just about gaming. And that's where it's like that's where I have hope. And I'm like, I hope it's not unfounded, because live redirect. Okay. Hey, we wanted something like that. I do agree. Cross channel. That would be huge, right? Like, let me go, because the thing about the raid was it's a great way for me to say, let me introduce you to somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me, like, I want you to meet this person, because hands down, you, me, Chaos. I think Chaos has multiple channels. Like, as a multi-channeler, like, I don't know if you've seen this, but they've actually talking about people like us and about how we can combine stats, and started to combine, like, you log in, it's like, yeah, I've got these channels. I want to see stats across the board. Like, that's going to be huge. Like, they've already started talking and showing off design concepts for that as a part of their studies. But yeah, live redirect. Like, let me go introduce you. Like, okay, I was like, oh, we're getting there. We're slow. We're just, we're just touching our toe into the water, seeing how it feels. Like, now they got live polls. I was like, okay, all right. Like, all right, let's go. I'm hoping that what it is, it ends up being, I think that makes the most sense, because that's something that's newsworthy. Hey, we turned on gifted subs, YouTuber gamers, like, yay, that would be great. That would, I think, financially be very powerful for content creators. But beyond that, like, it's not just about that one feature. Like you said, it's literally about, like, here's this thing where, like, hey, it's YouTube Live and it's launching. Honestly, I would say just announce it when it's ready. Because it's like, typically the thing that frustrates me is, like, I consider myself more on the smaller side, but I know a lot of people definitely don't view that. Like, there's a certain threshold. I don't know where I fall in this weird thing. I'm not yet 100K. I'm not, but I'm not, 10K. So it's like, there's a weird threshold. So I don't know where, like, I consider myself a small content creator, but I know that's not a 1-to-1, but
I must be a tiny creator then.
You got, like, what are you at Chaos now?
11. Okay.
11. See, yeah, you're right in that same, I consider you and I in the same window, like under 50. It's like, like little chunks, but I see, like, things get rolled out, and it's like the big, like, they don't roll it out to everybody. It's like, we've picked a select group of somebody to have this really cool thing. It's like, all right, I see that. I guess I'll see that in 2 years. Like, I saw everybody get clips, and even Work the Game got clips, and Ginger Prime didn't for a while. And I'm like, am I doing something wrong?
It was random, because our gaming channel got clips first, and it's like 5K. It's a 5K channel.
Yeah.
Like, what? And my main channel is like, we can taste 50K. We're right there.
Yeah, dude, you're getting close. You're getting close.
Right there. And we had to wait an extra week, and then we got it. And then, like, a couple days later, they're like, we've rolled it out to everybody. And I'm like, well, doggone it. Like, we could have had that weeks ago. Like,
yeah. Gaming, the podcast channel literally had clips like a month before Prime, and I'm like, I'm the same guy. Come on.
What's the channel that got it first?
Ginger Gaming Radio. So that's the podcast channel. So we're just over 2,000.
They targeted the gaming.
Yeah,
anything with gaming in its phrase, because ours was SNTR Gaming.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's like, find me, like, even though, like, the majority of the content on both is gaming, it's just fascinating. So I think you're right. I think that's probably like give me a rule, select all, wear gaming in name. Like, that's what you just got to do. Even if you're not a gaming creator, be like, this is my beauty channel and gaming. You'll get all the great features. That's what I'm gonna do when my girls get old enough. If they're like, yeah, I want to make videos, I want to do a beauty channel and gaming. It's just like, attach that and you're good. We're gonna talk about how to, I don't know, do what girls do, and then and play games. There we go. Right. All right, Lono, thanks so much for your time today, dude. Thanks for the little mini cast after the cast.
Yeah.
I'm glad my voice recovered. I was like, good Lord. That was y'all recovered perfectly at the end of that show. So appreciate it. I'm going to hit end broadcast, guys. Thank y'all for hanging out and chat. And hopefully y'all had a good time. And we'll see you guys later.